Okay, hello everyone. We're going to be going ahead and getting started here. My name is Jill Florent. I'm on the QuickSight product management team and head up our customer success initiative. I'm pleased to be here with our global solutions architect, Adnan Hassan, who specializes in QuickSight and the entire AWS Analytics suite. He is going to be taking us through a very in-depth workshop on how to level up your administrator experience in QuickSight.
Thank you, Jill. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, we sure can.
Very good. Okay, so let's get started. So first, thanks everyone for joining. We are going to be discussing the QuickSight administrative features today. This is part of our workshop series that we are doing, talking about different capabilities of QuickSight. Previously, we had a session on dashboard building and how would you build rich interactive dashboards for analytics. Today, our focus is largely going to be on the administrative side of QuickSight. So QuickSight has a lot of advanced administrative capabilities in terms of how you can operationalize the environment, how you're going to manage access control. So we will be discussing those, and then we will do a quick review of some of the recently released features on how you can improve the whole operational aspect of BI pipeline in your environment. So let's get started. This workshop requires an AWS account, and there is a setup that needs to run first. So what we will do is we will run the setup first to pre-provision few components, database and data that we will be using as part of our configuration. We will discuss some of the integration features like lake formation, folders, and this is going to be a persona-driven workshop. So I'll get to the full detail of what this workshop is about, but before I do that, let's get started on the account first. Let's set up the account. There is a CloudFormation template that everyone needs to run in their account to set it up. It takes about 10 minutes to run the whole flow, and it's going to set up a RDS instance in your account in a VPC with some data that we will be using later to do some analysis. And it's also going to pre-provision few identity and access entities like IAM roles as well as policies and few user accounts. The user accounts will be used to run through different persona-based exercises. So in this lab today, we will be playing different personas. There will be a business user, there will be a data curator, and then there will be an admin. So we'll walk through the whole process. So let's get started. I am logged in to the lab portal, and I'm going to share this link. So if you do not have that, you should get onto this link first. This is where all the lab material is posted. So I'm pasting this in this window here. So so this one is going to all organizers. Jill, how can I share this with all the attendees?
I think there should be a drop down for you, but I will post it right now. I think that everyone should have it now.
All right, if you're able to see the link, then please feel free to open it up in your browser. This is the guide for today's exercise. We will go through. First step that we will do is we will go to the step number 3 here, which talks about provisioning an environment. So let me bring my screen here. So if you are able to log into your QuickSight account, log in as the admin. That's the first thing you should do. Log into your AWS account. If this is the first time you are joining and you do not have an AWS account, I would encourage you to sign up quickly at aws.amazon.com. You will have a link here to create an account. So you should be able to create an account, and once you log in to the account, you will land here on this AWS console page. Okay. So I'll give you a minute or so for everyone to catch up and log in to your AWS account. Make sure you log in with someone that has administrative privileges on the account. So folks who are just joining in, I see there's still folks rolling in. So we are just getting started. We are starting with setting up our environment to run this lab on an AWS account. I am logged in as an administrator on one of the AWS accounts. I would encourage you to log into your account. Now you can pick any region. I have North Virginia selected, but you can pick any region of choice. You can go to Ohio or US West or US West 2, which is Oregon. So it's up to you. You can pick any region, and then we'll get started. All right. Okay. So if you're logged in to the AWS console, the first step that we have to do is we have to create an Amazon EC2 key pair. Now, if you already have an existing key pair, you can skip this step and you can use what you have. But in this account, this is a vanilla account. So I am going to create a key pair. To do the key pair, I have to go to a EC2 console. So what you can do is you can come up to find service and type in EC2. You do EC2, it will take you to the EC2 console. In the EC2 console, you will see a section on key pairs. So I'll go to key pair and I'll create a new key pair. And this key pair, I'm just going to type in admin workshop and create. Right. So go ahead, folks who are following this step, go ahead, create a new key pair. If you have an existing key pair, you can use that. If you want to create a new one, that's fine as well. So go ahead, create this key pair. So here, I've created a key pair, and that's all I have to do. Now I'm gonna switch back to the console. The way to switch back, I'm gonna click on this AWS icon on the upper left corner, and it's gonna take me back to the console. Next, what we will do is we will run a CloudFormation template. To do that, you have to click this button. It's going to add another button in there that you have to click. and this is the encoded template which is going to come out. So make sure you do this in your account. Okay? Make sure the account that you're logged in with, the CloudFormation console opens up, and I would go ahead, click on next. The first thing I will do is I will name the stack, call it QuickSight Admin Workshop. Now, there are different parameters that are already pre-provisioned for you. Okay, so what you can do is you can note this down. So note down the master user password and the end user password. So these are very similar. The difference is in just the number. There is password 1 bang and then password 4 bang. So that's the difference. You will need these two to go through the lab later in the exercises. Now, if you have created a new EC2 pair and that's the only one available, then it will come as pre-selected. If you have multiple key pairs, you will have this option, so you can select that as well. All right. So go ahead, do the step. Everything else will stay as is. The database name will be TPC. Just leave everything as is, and then click next. In this screen, I'm going to click next. And I'll review one last time to make sure everything is good. I will do the acknowledgement and click Create Stack. Now it's going to take about 7 minutes to provision the whole environment. So while the environment is being provisioned, let's go through the workshop itself and let's quickly talk about what we will be doing. So I'm going to switch my screen to this business context page in the guide. So go ahead, switch that. So as I mentioned, this is part of our series webinars that we are doing for QuickSight features. This one is targeted towards admins and how they can build an environment or a secure BI environment using QuickSight. This workshop is mainly designed for the ISV use case in mind, but this could be used in enterprises or other scenarios as well. Typically, when you are an ISV and you're building a SaaS application and you want to do some embedding or embedded analytics within your application, there's a whole process you follow on how you would curate your data, how would you create dashboard analysis, and then how would you publish it in your application. Also, a lot of ISPs these days are building a multi-tenancy application. So we will also touch on how you can use QuickSight to build a multi-tenant application. In this workshop, we will discuss how you can operationalize between dev, test, and prod environments. We will also have different user sign-in. So there will be administrator who are going to create a sandbox environment for users. And then data curators will come in, they will curate the data, but then they will not create any analysis or dashboard. That would be something that a business analyst will do. And we will also talk about how an analysis or a dashboard could be published or standardized for the multi-tenant environment. So that is the scenario. All the details are pasted up here. For the workshop, which for the CloudFormation template, it is setting up an environment, and this environment is building a RDS database. That RDS database will have the data that we will be using. And we will also be showing the lake formation integration. So that would be the pattern that we will use. If you click on the step number 4 here, it will show the workflow diagram on how we will execute it. So the first step is, with the CloudFormation template, we will have RDS instance set up with the data pre-provision. So that will come through the template. Our workshop is going to start from here. The first step that we will do is, at an administrator, we will set up the lake. We'll set up the data lake. We will configure it. We'll create a catalog, and we will crawl the data from the RDS into the lake. So that's the first step we will do. As part of that process, we will also assign some permissions for QuickSight users. So QuickSight users can come in and access the lake and the catalog. The data curation would be done by the data curator, and then the dashboards will be created by the analyst. So this step will be done by 2 distinct personas, and then the dashboard will be deployed in production by the admin. So in our scenario, we will have a dev test environment where the curators and business analysts will publish things, but then they will not be allowed to make changes in production. So that's something that the admin will do. Okay. This is the flow and the step that we will take. The first step is we'll start with the data lake admin. Who's going to grant permissions to the QuickSight user. Then the curator is going to come in. The curator will create a data set in the lake using Athena. The business analyst will create the analysis, and then the dashboard will be created by the admin. Now, there is a process that we will use on how they would share the resources between each other. We will use folders for that process. Okay. So now, before we do that, let's do for the lake formation step first. So I'm going to switch back to the AWS console. So go ahead, switch back. And what we'll do is we will configure the data lake. So I am going to find out AWS lake formation. So open up the lake formation console. You will get to this screen, and it's saying that this user who's logged in does not have permissions to it. So do you want to add this person as an administrator? So that's what we will do. We will click on add administrator, and I'm going to pick this user. Again, these are all the pre-provisioned users as part of the template. Now, this is based on the template creation. If you want to see this process, you will notice that it has completed. Now you can look at the output of this as well, and you will notice that these are all the different components that the CloudFormation template created. If you want to take a copy of this or a snapshot, that's fine. But this is what's been created. Okay. So the first step is I'm logging into the lake formation console. I have ISV admin, and I am going to click on save. So that's step number 1. So I'll take a pause here and make sure everyone is able to get this far. Now, if the ISV admin is not showing up, do check your CloudFormation status. Maybe the CloudFormation has not completely finished. So you may have to hold off until your CloudFormation stack is completed. Okay. So it'll take a minute for everyone to catch up, and then we'll get going. The steps for this process are documented in step number 5. So these are all the different steps we will be doing. Okay. Now, what we can do is we are assigning this user as an admin. So you can assign this user as an admin, and then we are going to sign off and log in as this person, because what we are saying here is that this is the ISV admin, and this ISV admin will have the data lake permission. So we're going to log in as the data lake administrator and do all the activities with that role. Okay. So the important point is once it's completed, make sure whatever admin account you are logged in with, you log off of that and then log in with your ISV admin. If you want to get the link, the account link to log into back to the console, the easy way to do this is open up the IM console and copy this link. This is going to take you right back into your account. Okay. So just to repeat, I did 2 steps. I logged in to AWS Lake Formation. I granted ISV admin as the administrator, and I copied this link to sign back. And now I am going to sign out. I'll sign out of the console. I'm going to paste the link that I copied. So now I have this account ID. And here I am going to do ISV admin. And I'm going to use the password for ISV admin, which is password 1 bang. It's listed in here, password 1 bang. And now I'm logged in as ISV admin. Okay. So go ahead, do this step, log in as ISV admin. Take a quick 30-minute pause, make sure everyone catches up. Okay. I'm now going to log into the lake formation console. Notice I'm logged in as an ISV admin. And this is visible if I click on admins and database creators. This is what's going to show up. Now, let's go through the steps that we have to do in the process. So we have already done this. We have logged in. Now, few things we have to do to set up to set up this environment first. When you log into the lake formation console for the very first time, there are some data catalog setting for backward compatibility. So let's uncheck this. This is the default permission for newly created database. It's saying is only IAM access control for new database and access for new tables in the database. So uncheck that and click on save. The other setting that you have to change is under admins and database creators. You will notice this IAM allowed principal group. So we have to revoke the permissions for that, because what we will do here is we are going to do explicit permissions. I'm going to have a role directly assigned here for permissions at the data catalog level, rather than using a generic IAM allowed principal group. So to do this, we are going to revoke the permission. Now, to revoke this permissions, do not click this. Just click on this revoke button. Again, repeat again. Do not click this. Just click on revoke, and in here, select IAM allowed principal group, and then click on revoke. So your screen should look like this. This is the IAM allowed principal group. It has catalog permissions to create the database. We are going to revoke it. All right, click on revoke. So now my permissions have been removed. So permissions have been removed. The next thing we will do is we'll create a new catalog database. To create this new catalog database, I'll click on database and click create. I'll call it ISV LFDB. Now, as part of your provisioning through CloudFormation templates, there are two buckets also provisioned. And when you click on browse, those buckets will show up. You have to pick the first bucket, which is gonna say ISV data lake, and it will have your account in front. So pick the one which says ISV data lake. The account selected. By the way, this step is published here. The entire step is 5B. So if you want to follow the screenshots, it's available here. All right, I'm going to create this database. So this database is created, and the S3 path for this database is this. Next, I'm going to register this location. To register this location, you can have the link here. Click the link, data lake locations, and click on register locations. In this register location, you are going to pick the same bucket, ISV data lake. And for the IAM role, we are going to pick the lake formation blue service role. What this step is doing is it's registering a S3 path as the storage location in the lake. So you can have different locations that are registered. What it's telling is now this location is managed by lake formation. And to manage this, we have granted a role with permissions to this data location. And that role is lake formation glue service role. This role is pre-provisioned also as part of the CF that you ran. Okay, I'm going to click register location. So now my location is registered. First, I created a metadatabase, and then I registered a location. Now, the next thing I have to do is I have to grant some permissions to the Glue catalog, that database. That permission is needed, otherwise the crawler won't run and you won't be able to import the catalog or the data in the tables. So next, what we'll do is we'll go to step number 5D, and here we are going to grant permissions. I'm going to go to data permissions and click on grant. I'm going to find the Glue service role that we will be using, the database that I just created, and then grant this role super permissions to this database. Granted this role super permissions means that this role can now create new tables, add data. It will have full control on it. Why we are giving this user permissions or this role permissions? Because when crawler will run under the context of this role, and it's needed. Otherwise, the import is not going to work well, nor the system is going to add new tables to this database. All right, so follow this step. I'll take pause for 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, let's do grant. So I've granted permissions to the role. Next, the next step is to import the data in the lake. So we will import the data from the RDS instance that was provisioned. And to do that, we are going to use a blueprint. So click on Blueprint and use a blueprint. The blueprint type should be the default. It's a database snapshot that we will use. And we will use the database connection. It will be the TPC Glue connector. This is also pre-provisioned for you as part of the CF template. By the way, the steps are all documented in here. So if you want to follow the steps, go ahead and do that. For the data source path, we are going to use TPC. TPC is the database name on the RDS instance that was provisioned. So I'm saying DPC / meaning bring me that database and all the tables that you know under that schema. Exclude pattern, I'm going to leave as default. Import target. Now it's saying when you pull the data from the source, where are you going to add this? So obviously we want to add it to this database that we created. As soon as I select this database, the target storage location will be selected. And the data format, we're gonna leave this as a Parquet because Parquet is a compressed format. So We're going to just use that. That's our default option as it's a compressed columnar format. Import frequency we'll leave as run on demand. And then for the workflow name, you can name anything you like. I'll follow the step in the guide. So it's ISV AppDB import. IAM role. I'm going to use the glue service role because that's the role that has permissions. And for the table prefix, I'm going to use DL. So we know that this is what's imported, right? So go ahead, fill this screen out. Again, you're using a blueprint database snapshot. We're using a database connector, TPC glue connector. We're pulling the data from this database, TPC. This is the target database. And then I have the workflow name and the role that will be used to run this. Okay, I'm gonna click on create. It's gonna take a minute or so for this workflow to set up. And once it's set up, then we will trigger this to start crawling. All right, looks like it was successfully created. So let's start it now. And we'll click on start now. Now this process is going to take about 20 minutes. So it takes about like 20 minutes to complete. It will ingest all the data from the TPC database and move it into the lake. So we will revisit it. Let's do a few other steps. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the lab. The first step that I will do is we will set up QuickSight. We will be setting up QuickSight and Cloud9. If you already have a QuickSight account set up in the account that you're using, you can skip that step. For folks who do not have QuickSight set up in their account, you can follow the process with me. We will use Cloud9 as a shell for this workshop. This is helpful because we will be making a lot of API calls and we will be using some JSON documents as well. So using Cloud9 improves that overall experience and it keeps things very organized. So we will be using Cloud9 in this process. So let's start by setting up Cloud9 first. I'm going to open a new tab and go to the AWS console again. Once I land in the console, I look for a service called Cloud9. So you can open it up. Just wait on people to catch up. Open the service, Cloud9. It's going to take me to the Cloud9 console. I'm going to click on Create New Environment, this red button. I'm going to name the environment Cloud9. Next, I'll keep all the settings as default. I won't change anything. It sets up EC2, a small EC2 instance, and it's a T2 microtype, so it's a small one. There's a shell that gets created that we will log in to execute our commands. All right. So I'm going to leave everything as default. Click on next step, and then create environment. All right. So it will take few minutes for this environment to create. Let's set up QuickSight. To do that, I'll open another tab, go to the console again. And the beauty of this is once you're logged into the console, you can always SSO into another one by just having another tab. So I'm logged back in. As an ISP admin, the next step I will do is I'll set up QuickSight. To do QuickSight, find the QuickSight service. Now, if you do not have QuickSight set up in your environment, this is the screen you're gonna get. If you have QuickSight set up, then you will likely be able to log in to the console. Okay. So folks who already have QuickSight, just wait for minutes. We will set it up and then we'll resume on the same path. So let's set up QuickSight. The first screen is about the two editions that are available. It just compares and contrasts the different features you're going to get with a standard or enterprise edition. For this workshop, we will use the enterprise editions so I'll leave this selected and I'll click continue. Now, we're gonna leave a lot of things as default here as well, but I wanna do some quick discussion or explain what these are. The first option you see here is for the security and access control. It shows QuickSight can support Active Directory integration or use role-based federation. Now, QuickSight supports different type of identity and access strategies or different type of identity providers. The default option is use role-based federation. This option supports QuickSight authentication, IAM authentication, any SAML-based authentication, OpenID authentication. So this supports all the external authentication, including the QuickSight authentication. So QuickSight authentication means that you will be creating user IDs within QuickSight. So user ID and groups are created as part of the QuickSight's own internal database. When you use IAM, that means AWS IAM will supply the user ID and password. If you have other scenarios like Cognito, your users live in Cognito, Cognito can have a federated trust with AWS IAM, and that's how you will set up the flow. The same process works for SAML-based authentication as well. You can have a SAML federation configured with AWS IAM, and that will allow you to use third-party identity credential and get access to QuickSight. You can also configure this with AWS SSO if you want a centralized broker in your environment. That's also an option. So this is a very versatile option which is available. The other option is Active Directory integration. Now, this is not Azure Active Directory integration. This is the standard Kerberos-based Active Directory integration. If you want QuickSight to use Active Directory authentication, then that's the option. But if you have this option configured, you will not be able to use other options like QuickSight database or IAM or SAML. So it's one or the other. If you have Active Directory, then Active Directory will be the source or will be the identity provider for access to QuickSight. All the users and groups will come from Active Directory, and you can have those entitlements set up in QuickSight for those users and groups, right? So that is the difference. In this workshop, we'll be using IAM principles. So I will keep the role-based federation set up as is. Next, QuickSight region. Now this region is also important. Even though when QuickSight is set up in the account, you can configure QuickSight instances in different regions. So what is the purpose of this? When QuickSight is set up for the very first time, there is an identity region. This identity region is set up at the time of this configuration here. Um, and this is where all the identity management pieces will go. You can have another region where you can create all the different resources, but identity will come from the region that you choose during setup. So that's something important to remember. Now, QuickSight account name. Pick a unique account name, anything that doesn't conflict with existing account name. So I'm gonna just call it QuickSight Admin Workshop, and I'm gonna use my alias. And then pick a notification email. You can use your personal email address. Just make sure it's a valid email. If it's not a valid email, then the setup is going to fail. Okay. And then we can leave all the other options as selected. Notice here that we have Athena selected, but we do not have S3 selected. But through lake formation, we will be accessing the S3 data. Okay, so that's an important point to remember. If you want QuickSight users to have direct access into S3, then you need to enable this option. But in this workshop, we will be accessing through the lake formation catalog the data in S3. Okay, so that's the difference. I will not select this. So leave this here, set it up like this, and then click on finish. It will take a minute to set up the account. Let's switch to my Cloud9. What's the status? Looks like this process is completed, so we'll get to that. But let's see. First, QuickSight. So QuickSight is set up. I will click on this, go to QuickSight, and it's gonna take me to the QuickSight console. The very first time when you log into QuickSight, it set up a few samples for you. And if you wanna go in the administrative panel, that's on the upper right corner. You can click that, click on manage. It will take you to this administrative screen. And here you can see this is the user who's signed in. And I have the role assigned as admin. Okay. Now we have other accounts also provisioned in AWS IAM. Those accounts needs to be registered, which we are going to do shortly. So let's switch to Cloud9. Okay, let's do a quick configuration of Cloud9 here. So first, once the setup is complete, you can choose different themes. I like a lighter theme, so I'm going to switch to that. It's a preference. If you want to keep a darker theme, up to you. What I typically do is I just try to remove all this clutter. I like things neat and clean. The first thing I will do is I will add a new file here, and I'm going to call this a master file because I'm going to store some things here that we will need to run this workshop. So let's do a quick save. I'm going to save this, call it the master file. Now, the first thing that we need to do, we need to copy the account. So switch to your AWS console or any console where you can get to the account and copy this account, because we will need this account. So I'm just taking a copy. This account will be needed every now and then. And next, I'm going to open another tab. This time, I will open a new terminal. Here, I'm going to execute few commands. The first thing I'm going to do is I will assign this account as a variable. So it's sometimes easier to recall. So to do that, what you can do is type in this command, export. If you're running a Linux or a Mac bash shell, then this is going to work. For Windows, you can use the set command. So I'm going to use export and then a variable equals my account. Okay, so I'm just exporting this. For the Windows, you can use the set command. All right, it's exported. So if I want to see how this look, so I can do echo dollar. And I can see the value is now stored in this environment variable, right? So that's the first step we did. We set up an environment variable for this account name because we will be using this on many occasions. Okay, so we are done there. Let's switch to the guide and look at our next steps. So we have Cloud9 set up. We went through QuickSight settings. Next, what we have to do is we have to do custom permissions. Okay, so let's do the custom permissions. Switch to the QuickSight console, and we will do custom permissions. What are custom permissions? Custom permissions allow you to lock down your author role further, meaning if you do not want your authors to, say, create a data source, you can lock it down. If you do not want your authors to create a data set, you can lock it down. On certain scenarios, you only want your authors to just create a dashboard or an analysis. Then you want to lock them down. It's very helpful in use cases where you do not want to share credentials for the data source directly. So what you can do is you can pre-provision a certain data source to the author. When they log into the portal, that data source will be available to them, and they can use that to create a new data set. Sometimes you can also pre-provision data source for them in case there are standardized data sets that you want used to ensure there is a single version of truth. That is possible. A challenge today in BI or self-service BI analytics is when the analyst or users are given access to the data. A lot of time people download and create their own data, and they end up with many copies of the same data, which is very dysfunctional. It costs a lot more. It's very difficult to manage and maintain, and it's difficult to secure as well. So with this process, you can lock down your environment. You can ensure that only certain people who are allowed to access a data source can access that. And you can have a standardized data sets available as well, right? You can call it the certified data set as well in this process. So we are going to click on manage permission, and we will create custom permissions. The first permission that I will create is I am going to call that I will call it a restrict data source. This restrict data source will be assigned to the data creator. Scenario is data creator is allowed to create a data set, but cannot get access to the credentials of that data set. Okay, so that's the scenario. So I'm going to create a restrict data source, And to do that, I just have this permission, restrict creating or updating data source. So I'll create that one. So I'll leave this up. So that's the first permission. And then I'll create another one. And this time I'll call it restrict data source and data set. So now I'm going to select both of them. So these are created. Okay. So I have these two permissions created. By the way, this step is in 6C. So if you're following, this is right up here. Next, we are going to provision the QuickSight users. So we have few IAM users created. If you want to quickly look at those users, you can open the console again and go to IAM users, and you will notice these users, ISP Business Analyst and ISP Data Curator. And there is a developer that was also created for this workshop. We'll be using these two, ISP Business Analyst and ISP Data Curator. So to create this, we are going to use an API. Now you can create this directly in the console, but we will show you how to do this entire process using QuickSight APIs. QuickSight has a vast set of APIs to do all the administrative functions, from account management to data source, data set management, dashboard publishing, analysis, templates. There's so many things you can do with the APIs. So that's part of QuickSight initiative to provide a very robust administrative panel for administrators to manage the whole business intelligence environment. Okay, so we will review that today. The first step that I want you to do is I want you to create a new file in Cloud9 and copy this code. Okay, so I'm going to copy this code, and I'll create a new file called create data curator.json. How do we do that? Switch to Cloud9. I'm gonna select this and create new file. And I call it create data curator.json. Okay, I'm creating this file. I'll open this up and I will paste the content of that JSON that I copied from here. So this is the code to create the user. Okay, so let's go through this. What are we doing here? So the first option here is it's saying, okay, you're creating this user. What is the identity type? What is the email? This is going to email. What is the role that's get assigned? Who is this user? What is the IAM-ARN? You said this is the IAM user, so what is the IAM-ARN? So the IAM-ARN for this user is this. Now, what we have to do here is, since we copied this account, you have to replace this down here. So replace wherever it says your account name or your account ID, you have to replace with the value that you stored earlier. And if you notice here, it's saying the custom permission name is restrict data source. This is what we created. So this script is going to provision a user with restricted permissions. Okay. Okay. Make sure you save this. The save is you can do Command S, or in Windows, you can do Control S or save. Now I'm going to open here, go back to the console, and let's quickly review the QuickSight APIs. To look at QuickSight APIs, what you can do is you can type in AWS and then type in the service name and do help. And you will get a list of all the different type of APIs available. So you see this is a vast list. There are things for all the different objects. From group, there is API to create group, delete. Now, most of our APIs use a common nomenclature, and it's based on a verb and a noun. So if you're trying to create a dashboard, you will have it create dashboard. If you're going to delete it, it'll say delete dashboard. If you're trying to update it, it's going to be update dashboard. Listing, there's dashboards. So this is a common pattern nomenclature that we use for all our APIs, and this is across the board. This is a common AWS structure that we have used. Okay, you can see there are a lot of different APIs. Now, only difference here is to create the user. Actually, the user is already created. So what we are going to do in this scenario, we are going to call an API called register user. It's not really create user, it's a register user API. Now to look at what this register user API, I can do AWS. So QuickSight register user help. And it's gonna give me what the register user API does. Now I can run this in a command line and pass all these different arguments too. That's possible, but it's a lot of arguments to pass. So it's easy to do this through a JSON file. I can store all the parameters in a JSON file and then point the register user API to that file. It's just an easy way to provision something. But I could always use the CLI and pass arguments that way. That's possible. If you want to know what the JSON structure looks like, there's a really nice command here called QuickSight. If I want to do register user, I can pass this argument, generate CLI skeleton against the API. And what it will do is a little spit out this JSON structure for me. This is exactly the JSON structure I used to create this. All right, so this is a great way to use a JSON structure for an API and then just you populate it. Okay. All right, so going back here, so do this step, create this file called create data created.json. Make sure you replace the account name in 2 places, and then we will run a command to create the user. Right? So I'll take a 20-second pause, make sure everyone finishes the step, and then we'll move ahead. We will take a short break. I know it's an hour. We'll take a short break after we finish the exercises in step 6. So we'll take a break in the next 10-15 minutes. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's now run this. To run this, you can use this command, AWS QuickSight register user, and all I have to do is just pass this file. Okay. It's a simple command. So I'll just go through this. Call it AWS QuickSight register user, and then CLI input JSON. That's the argument. I'll pass the file name. So file name is create data curator.json. Just this file, curator, and I'm gonna click. There you go. So now it has provision status 201. It has provision a user. It's registered this user ISP data curator. And if you switch your screen and refresh the admin console, you will notice that this account is now provisioned. There you go. This account is now provisioned, an author role, and the permission, it is restricted. Okay. All right. Step 2. Similar to this, we are going to provision another user called business analyst. Okay. So for the business analyst, you're going to copy this code. Same thing. I'm gonna go back here. Let's say a new file and call create business analyst.json. Now this is the business analyst. I'll copy the count, replace those values in here. Save it, and now I'm ready to run it. Okay. Again, very similar to the previous one. The only difference is this time we are locking this user further. So the previous user was not able to create the data source. This user cannot even create a data set. Okay, so that's the difference. I'll go back here and use the same command. Just I'm going to call a different file this time. Business analyst.json. And I have another user provision. So go ahead, complete the step. Now, a couple of things that we will need here. We will need to copy the ARNs of these users. So in your master file, the two ARNs that were created, these are the reference IDs for these users. To grant these user permissions, we will need these ARNs. Okay, so step number one, copy this data curator ARN up here. We will need that. And then same thing with the business analyst. Both these ARN needs to be copied. Yeah, save it. Otherwise, you have to run the describe user again to pull this ARN. So while this is created, make sure you have this thing saved. Okay, now that we have created the users, we are now going to create few folders. So let's switch to the QuickSight console. The users here. Switch to the QuickSight homepage. And here I will go to shared folders. Okay. So what are shared folders? Shared folder is a great way to share different objects in QuickSight with other people. Admins can drop different resources out here, data sets, dashboards, analysis, and then they can assign permissions to the folders. So anyone who has permissions will get access. Why was this needed? Because QuickSight is designed on an explicit permission model. Every object that is created in QuickSight has its own permission set. While the admins can look at the object, um, they cannot get into the object. For example, they will be able to see a dashboard that is created by user ABC, but they will not be able to see what's inside the dashboard. Same thing with the data source and data set. So a lot of times, whenever you create a data source or a data set or a dashboard, you have to explicitly grant people permissions to it, which is sometimes not very efficient. So shared folders solve this problem. The shared folders, you're able to now easily share uh, different components with different users, and you can manage the whole environment that way. How we are going to use share folders in this lab? We will discuss the whole operational pipeline using dev, test, and prod with that. So the scenario is you have a shared folder, which is a dev environment for the data curator. So maybe data curators can use this to create data sets. The same way, there could be another test environment where business analysts can create the analysis. And then there could be a production set, which is used by IT to publish dashboards. So this could be available for the general public, but the rest of the folders are used by different personas. So that's what we are going to use in this design, in this lab. I have this listed out in the section called create shared folder, and you can look at it. The whole concept of certified data set could be built with that. Certified data set is a concept where you can have IT publish some approved data set. So rather than people creating many versions of the same data or their own copy, there is an issue around the single version of truth. That's why people run into the master data management um, uh, solution. So this could be a way to address some of them. So let's do this. We are going to create few folders. The first folder that we're gonna do is we'll create a shared data set. In the shared data set, we will grant some permissions. Then we will have ISV tests folder, which will be used by the analyst. And then there will be a ISV production folder. Okay, so let's create this. The first one I'm gonna call shared data sets. Okay, so create a new one called share data set. And once you have done it, click on share. And in here, I am going to pick this user. So the curator is the person who will create the data set and publish it down here. Okay. So I'm going to grant this person owner privileges. The business analyst will have access to it, but only view access. So the business analyst will not be allowed to change the data set. Okay. So that's why the business analyst is getting a view permissions. And then the ISV admin ISV admin already has it. So I'm going to share this. And now you have this screen right here. So go ahead, create this. Create a shared data set. Okay, let's do another one. Next one is called ISV test. Create, share. This time, I am only going to grant this to the business analyst with the owner privileges. The curator do not need privileges here. Okay. This is the sandbox for the business analyst. So I'll share. These are the two permissions you're gonna get. So last, I'm gonna create ISV production. Here, everyone will have view access except admins. So the ISV business analyst, they both will have view access. Now, if you do not want ISV data curator to have access, that's fine, but I'll still give this person so he can also view the dashboards. Then it's up to you. If you don't want to give, then she can may only look at the folders they are assigned to. All right, go ahead, create this. Okay, So now we have set up the permissions on the folder, which we are going to use. There's one last exercise around shared data source. Okay, so far all these functions that we have done are done by the admin. Okay, and we are going to do data lake permissions via an admin as well. And then steps here and here, they'll be done by different personas. Okay, so I am going to create this one last step, and this is to create a shared data source. Um, Data sources are created by pointing to the backend source. QuickSight had many different connectors available to create these data sources, and you have to specify credentials sometime. It's better to pre-provision these for the users so you don't have to share these user ID passwords to connect. Okay, so it's much easier that way. To create this, I am going to use QuickSight, and we will use the QuickSight data management console. But we are not going to create a data set. Okay, so there is a trick, to not to create a data source. And the way we do this is, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna click on this data set here. Okay, and I say I'm going to create a new data set. I'm just creating a new data set. Even though I'm creating a data source, I click on this new data set because we do not have a data source creation. So it has to go through the data set. But the existing data sources are visible here. So if you want to use any of these, you can pick those. If you don't want to use the existing data source, then you can just create a new one. To create a new one, I'm going to pick on this Athena. I am going to give it a name. Okay, and the name is LF app data. That's the name. So I'm going to just click on create, and that's about it. Okay, don't do anything else. Just click on create data source and then exit out. It will just create the data source. That's all we need to do in this step. Okay, so go ahead, open up the data management console to create a data set. You can click on the data set, new data set, and you will get to this page. Okay, so I'll wait a few seconds. All right, I'm just going to click on create data source, and I am going to exit out. Okay, so if you move further, then um, it will take you to another screen, which we don't want. Okay, for now I just have created the source. Okay, and if you refresh, you will notice that LF app data source is now created. Next thing that we are going to do with this data source is I am creating this under the admin user. I am going to share this, and I'm going to share this with the data creator. So when I share this with the data creator, then the data creator will be able to create a data set using this, which we are going to do in step 8. And here, I'm just going to grant user privileges to this user. If I do owner privileges, then the user will be able to change it, but I do not want owner privileges. So I'm just granting user privileges. Okay, so go ahead, do the step. All right. So this is the last step in our exercises. Exercise number 6. So we can take a quick break. I know we are almost halfway there. So how about we take a 10-minute break, 10, 15 minute maybe, and then resume. All right, folks, we are ready to resume. I hope everyone is back from the break. So let's review what we have done so far. We'll go to the next step. So far, we have set up lake formation, we have set up Cloud9, we set up QuickSight, we set up a folder structure to grant different personas permissions. We registered the users. The 2 personas that we registered were the data curator and a business analyst. The scenario that we are targeting is the data curator is going to create a data set, and the business analyst will create the analysis. The data source has been created by an administrator because we do not want the data sources to be created by the curators, because creating the data sources will require sharing of the credentials. So this way, we have completely segregated the roles and responsibilities around the entire data pipeline. Okay, so this is what has been done so far. Our next step now is to grant permission in lake formation. So we have to grant the data creator permission in lake formation. That permission will restrict the data curator access to certain sources. We are also going to look at the column level permissions in the lake formation, so we will enforce that. Now, before we do that, we have to pull the ARN of the ISV admin user as well, because we are going to grant the ISV admin some permissions as well. So switch to the step number 7, data lake permissions. And here, notice I'm pulling the ARN of ISV admin. Now, ISV admin was a user that was directly registered um, uh, uh, because when we did the installation, that was the user that we used to install with. So this user was automatically registered, and we were never able to get the ARN. So now we'll use the API to pull the ARN. So let's switch screen to Cloud9. Now, to pull this ARN, we can use the describe user command. So let's try this. Let's do AWS QuickSight, and I'm going to call the describe user. So we talked about the verb and a noun. To create a user, you have register user. To list user, you get list user. To delete user, you delete user. To get information about a user, it's describe user. Okay, so if I click on this, it will give me an error. It say describe user needs some critical commands. So what are those commands? One that's saying you have to pass the username, you have to pass the account ID, and you have to pass the namespace. So let's do that. Let's pass some values. So my username is ISV admin. My AWS account ID is what I've stored up there, but I've also stored this as an environment variable. So I'm going to just pass this as an environment variable. If you want, you can just copy it from the master file here, and then drop that value out there. And then the last thing it needs is a namespace. Namespace is going to be default. So namespace allows you to create segregation among different user entities. This allows you to create boundaries if you have a multi-tenancy environment. So say you have a default namespace which is used by the administrators, but you want to do multiple namespace for different customers. The benefit here is that namespace users are only allowed to see the users that are in the namespace, right? So you can restrict different customers for having to look at users from other tenants. That's the whole idea. We are going to do this in an exercise as well. But for the ISV pipeline, the default namespace is used by the ISPs themselves. And then we will create different namespaces for customers, and we'll create some users for customers as well. Okay, so I am going to run this command. AWS QuickSight, describe user, username, ISV admin. I run this, and here it gives me information about this user, and it also provides me the ARN for this user. So I'm going to save this ARN because I will need that shortly. So go ahead, pull the ARN for the admin. So that's the first step. Now I'm going to switch to the lake formation console because that's where we're gonna start to grant some permissions. So the first permission I'm gonna grant is to the ISV admin. Now, to grant permissions to a QuickSight user, you need the whole ARN. So let's quickly talk about it because there is a difference on how different entities access lake formation. So go ahead, switch this to the lake formation console, and then open up this data permissions. This is where all the data permissions are. So open up data permission. And here I'm going to click on grant. Now, here you can do different things. You can drop IAM users and role. So if I want to grant the IAM user privileges, I can do that. So this is the same user has IAM credentials, like Active Directory credentials. Right? So this user can sign in using that persona as well. But if this user is logged in from QuickSight, I want this user permission from QuickSight. So you have two ways you can lock down this data. Either if this user is coming in directly as its own persona or coming in through QuickSight. If this user comes in through QuickSight and you want to lock this down, then you need the ARN. If you want generic lockdown for this user, you can use this user as is. If you have this generic lockdown for this user, it will allow this user to use some other ways to access the data, right? But through QuickSight, you have to drop the ARN. So that's a difference. Make sure everyone understands this. So now, the first thing I'm going to do is I will pick the ARN for the ISV admin, which is this. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to drop this here. So this is my ARN. And here I'm saying grant permissions here to all tables. So essentially I'm saying just give this user permissions, super permissions to all the tables in this database. Okay, so that's step number one. So go ahead, do this step. I'll click on grant, and I got this permission here. Next, I'm going to pull the ARN for the data curator and grant this user permissions as well. Now, to grant this user permissions, I'm going to grant this to few tables. So the first table that I'm going to grant permission is a customer table, and I'm going to exclude certain columns. Here we're going to see how the column level security works in lake formation. So this is a scenario that you can log down certain columns for authors. And again, this is important. This column level security is strictly for authors. It's not for readers. The reader level leader level lockdown for row and column, that can be done at QuickSight. QuickSight recently released the column level feature, so that could be handled at that level. So we are going to grant permissions to the TPC customer table, and we are also going to grant to all the other TPC tables as well, like select permissions, right? So let's go through this. Let's switch to the lake formation. Now, our import brought several tables. You can look at those tables by hovering over tables and then looking at this big list. All the DL1s were created by the crawler, okay? And that's what we're gonna grant permissions to. So go back here, data permissions. I'm going to do grant permissions. Okay, I'm going to switch a screen. I'm going to pull the ARN for the curator. I didn't like it. Let's try again. I didn't copy the whole thing. Okay, try again. Now it's better. So now I'm using the data curator to pick the database, and let's pick the first table called TPC customer table. And here, what I can do is I can exclude certain columns. So what I can exclude in this are all the PII information. So the PII information could be the first name, last name, current address. I can have birth date, birth country, birth year, date, email address. Okay, so I've selected a few of these. Go ahead, copy those. And here I'm excluding them, but I'm granting just the select permissions to this table. So the rest of the columns are select, and then these columns are excluded. Click on grant. So now I have these columns excluded, and I'm also going to grant the same user permissions to different tables. So now I am going to pick all the other tables like customer, address, household, demographic, income, item, promotion, web page, web sales. I just granted permissions to all the others and just grant select permissions. So only one table was restricted. The rest I'm granting this user access. Okay. Click on grant. All right, so we granted permissions to the ISV admin as well as the data creator. So with that, all the action items for the admin has been done. The admin set up the environment, set up the folder structure, granted permissions in the lake, and that's about it. Next, what we will do is get into the data creation process. Now, to do this data creation process, we will sign in with the data creator. Okay, so that's the next step. How are we going to do this? We are going to sign out of AWS console and sign back in. So to sign out, I'm going to go back here. But before doing that, let's do something. Let's copy maybe this account ID we will need again. So just copy this account ID in case you cannot get in. So make sure just copy this account ID before signing out, okay? Copy this account ID, I'm gonna sign out. And okay, it has already had that account listed. In case your account is not listed, that's why I had you copy the account. Next, I'm going to sign in as data curator. And the password is same. It's password 1 with bang. And now I'm logged in as an ISP data creator. Now to SSO into QuickSight, it's simple. You just switch your screen to QuickSight and then do a refresh. It will sign in as the data creator. So now notice I just signed in as the data creator and I was on the data setup screen. Notice this user is not allowed to create a new data set. So all the connector options are disabled for this user. They are not visible. Okay. And this user, see if I go with new data set, I do not see any of that. All right. So that's now it's a completely locked down environment. I cannot even get to the admin panel from here because I am just an author. I don't have administrative privileges. I can get to the main panel and I can see the analysis if I've created something or a data set or shared folders that have been shared with me. These are the shared folders. Notice the ISV test is not here because this user does not have permissions on ISV test. There's this permission on these two folders. So what we will do now is we will do some data creation. Okay, so this data creation process is all set up here. The first step was to log in. Now we are going to create a Athena data set. So you'll use the existing source to create the Athena data set. We will use custom query to build this. Okay. But before we do the custom query, let's quickly show the column level security. Okay. So I'm going to switch my screen, go to data set. We'll create on new data set. This is the data source which is available. By the way, if I click on this data source, I cannot do anything. I cannot share because I just have a view permissions to it. But I can create a new data set. I click on new data set. In the first table, these are all the tables that I have access to. If I have not explicitly granted them, it won't show the table. So notice there were many different tables out there in the AWS management console, in the lake formation console, but I only able to see the tables that I have permissions to. So the first table I'll do is like TPC customer. So let's do edit and preview data. And this will take me to this data set screen where I can build the data set. Notice I'm not able to see any of the PII data here. The first name, last name, birth date, all those columns are missing because lake formation is enforcing column level security. So I'm not able to see any of that. So just want to quickly show you that how the column level security works and how that experience is going to be for the authors. So I'm going to cancel this and I'm going to create another one. And this time I will use the custom SQL option. And in the custom SQL, I am going to copy this. Now, sometimes I've seen you're gonna run into some problems. We'll see, if this is solved. Otherwise, we may have to directly type in the value. So ISV, LFDB, DLTPZ web cells, we may have to directly copy. So I'm going to use custom SQL. Edit preview, and I'm going to drop this and click on apply. Yeah, it generated this error, so I'm going to just copy this and type this whole thing. So I'm just creating a custom SQL. It's a basic select from say DL TPC web cells. So this is a table, this is a schema, so I'm specifying the schema and the table. I'm running this. So it goes through. Sometimes when you do a copy, it adds those additional characters and it does not go through. So here, I'm now able to run this query. And you can, so this is a custom query that I've created. That's a custom SQL. I can call this web sales. Call this web sales query. I can save this, and so this is my custom SQL. If I edit this again, this is how it's gonna show up in my custom SQL. Now, we recently released a feature where you can add multiple custom queries and combine them together. So previously you were creating a custom query, you have to specify a whole SQL and that's about it. You cannot really change much. But now what we can do is I can create a custom SQL and join with another custom SQL. So I can create an aggregated set that way, or join, or a bigger denormalized structure like that. So let's try that. Let's let's create another custom SQL. So I can add data, and I can use custom SQL again. So now this time, what I am going to do is I will join this with the item table. Okay. So the previous table was the web sales table. It's a fact table. Now I'm going to add this with a dimension table because I can query some dimensional attributes. So I'll do select star from ISV LF DB, and the table name is TPC item. So it says your query was successfully applied to that data set which I added. So I'm going to call this item query. So it says this was applied. So now if I close this, I will get this. So now it's showing that this is the first query, this is the second query, and then it's giving me these two dots, meaning it's still not able to join an array because it's going a Cartesian product right now. So what I really need to do is I need to find that common attribute to do this join. And the common attribute is the item key here, which is WS item SK. And on items, it is item SK. So go ahead, add this, and you need to do a join with this, with these two fields. So I'm going to take a pause for 30 seconds because there are multiple steps I did. So make sure you are able to catch up. Okay, so click on apply. So now it's going to do the join, and it will bring me a combined data set using both of those attributes. Now, similar to this, these are the two custom queries. What I can also do is I can add this with another table. And this time I may not need a custom SQL. I can just directly add a table. So let's add a table. I can do TPC customer address table, and I can just do a select here. And here I can do a join on customer ship address SK versus CA address SK. Okay, so these are the two attributes. So now you're able to join a table with a data set that has two custom SQLs. Right? So I just want to show you how flexible this is. You can it's very powerful how you can mash up your data. And you have all these options as well: inner, left, outer, all those options available. And click on apply. So now I have, with this, we have combined the source. Now, this was really there to simulate what is possible with this. I mean, this entire thing could be built using one custom SQL. It's so simple. You can just drop a custom SQL, and it would have pulled all this. But just want to show you that what you can do with this. Where this would be very useful is if you have one custom SQL, this table, and maybe another custom SQL you want to run with some other data source, maybe some with a file, and you want to join. So this will allow you to combine or create your own mashed up data set from different sources. So it's going to give a lot more power to the data creator on how they want to present the data. I'm going to save this data set. I'm going to call this customer sales data, and I will click on save. So now this is saved. Now I want to share this with the analyst. Right now, this is created by me, one off by the data curator. So one way to share this is to click on this and share this with the business analyst. But here what we are going to do, instead of sharing directly, we are going to drop this or add this to the shared folder. And what was that shared folder? That shared folder was the shared data set. As soon as I attach this user to the shared folder, shared data set folder, business analyst and the IT admin will get access to it, right? So rather than having to grant individual users, this is the way to get access or grant permissions to different objects. Okay, so go ahead, complete this step. First, we completed the data set, and then we attach that data set to the shared folder. The next exercise will be for the business analyst. Now, the business analyst will log in, and business analyst will use this data set to create an analysis. And remember, business analysts did not have permissions to create a data source and a data set. So that's the only data set they can see to create their own analysis. Okay, so that's the next step, next exercise. So go ahead, complete it. All right, now to log in as a business analyst, I am going to log out. And no time in case this is not there, so I'm going to just copy this and sign out. Now this time you will use ISV business analyst. It's the same password, password 1, the bang, logging in as ISV business analyst. Switch my screen to QuickSight, do a refresh, and now I am logged in as the business user or business analyst. Now let's look here. QuickSight dataset. If I click on dataset, this dataset is available because this dataset is now shared with the business analyst. And where is my create dataset option? Oops, I do not have an option to create the dataset. So because of the custom permission, this user is completely locked down. This user can only create the analysis, not allowed to create the dataset. So now I'm going to use this data set to create the analysis, and notice this is in a view mode. So this user cannot do anything with this data set either, cannot share, doesn't know what this data set is about, and just use to create the analysis. I'm going to create this analysis. And now I'm in the analysis pane. Here we can quickly create few visuals. Now the intent of this workshop is not to create visuals. We have the admin, we have the business ready workshop where we go in detail on how to build visuals, do advanced analytics with data. So here I'm going to just draw a few values in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'll just drop a category. I'll add a measure. So I'll do sales price. This is electronics. And then I'll take a copy. I'll duplicate this visual. I'll do a different field in here. Can do a discount instead of this for a category. See all the different discounts. I can have different charts, line charts, bar charts. So this, maybe use a different one. I can use a line. It'll show some different charts. Now it is taking a little longer because I did not use a spice. That's something we should have done in our data creation. So this is still running in a direct query. So it's taking a little longer to come and refresh. If you go with spice, then it's a lot faster. Okay, I can add another visual. I can have net profit and net profit against a specific class. I can also pull some insights in here. So the insights, the nice thing with QuickSight is as soon as you bring the data in, it would automatically start to pull some insights about the data. So I'm going to add few insights in here. Like these are the bottom rank. There are some top rank stuff that you can do. Okay, I think we are good. So go ahead, create some visuals in here. And I'm going to just call this customer sales data analysis, which is fine. And so that's pretty much it. That's the visual I have built. Now the next thing I'm going to do is go back. I see this analysis. I'm just going to add it to the folder. So this is the business analyst. The business analyst can see all these folders compared to creator who wasn't able to see this. So now I'm going to share this with the test folder so admins have access to it. The scenario that we have is when you give authors access, they can work in their own sandbox environment. So this is their sandbox. And when things are ready, they can publish it in some kind of test or QA environment. Once it's QA, then admin can use that to operationalize in production. So that's the process. So here in this case, the analyst is ready to publish his or her work. So now we are going to log in as an admin and do rest of the processes. Okay, I'm going to put this in the test folder, click add, and now this is added. So it's added under test. So the work of business analyst is done. Now I am going to switch back as the admin. because admin is going to operationalize. So I'm going to log out again. And this time I'm going to log in as ISV admin. Switch here and refresh. And I'm logged in as an admin. You can see everything. So now we are in step number 10. Here we have to operationalize. Now to operationalize, what QuickSight has is a process which is different when you do it from the GUI. The process involves creation of a template. Templates are snapshot of analysis, a point in time snapshots of the analysis. Uh, the benefit with template, it allows decoupling between an analysis and a dashboard. Scenario is you want to publish your work, but then you're also working on it, right? But you want to publish a specific version of that. So template helps you with that. It can create that snapshot, and that snapshot will be used to provision the dashboard. Okay, so that as long as that snapshot is not refreshed, the dashboard that will be shown will be of a previous state. So that's what we are going to do in this exercise. We are going to create a template, and we'll go with that. Okay. Uh, Now, before we do that, there's another thing which we will do. What you can do with QuickSight is you can switch the data set on the dashboard. So because of the decoupled nature of QuickSight, the components could be reused differently. So scenario is you may have analyst creating an analysis using a data source and a data set which is in dev. But when you are creating a dashboard in production, you want to switch to a production data source and a data set. So how would you do that? That's possible in QuickSight. Through APIs, you can switch the data source and a data set to a different version or a different object, as long as the schema is the same. And so that's a great benefit. In that case, you don't have to grant your analyst and your data curators access to the production data. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. And the way to do that is to create a copy of this data set. So here, what I'll do is I have this customer sales data set. I'm going to create a copy of that, and I'm going to call it a certified data set. And this is the certified data set I will use for the dashboard. Okay, so let's do the step. I'm logged in as ISV admin. This is the customer sales analysis. I'll go to the data set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate it. This is for the workshop. I'm just duplicating it, but assume there is another data set that you're using. So I'm just duplicating it. I'm going to call it certified. So now it's a certified layer, and I'll duplicate it. Or refresh. Now my certified data set is here. The next thing I will do is I will add it to the production folder, because when the dashboard is deployed, it will pick it from the production. So I've added it to production. So go ahead do this step, create a copy of the data set, create a new data set, call it certify, this copy, and then drop it in the production folder. By the way, this is step 10A. Okay, very important. Now we would need the ARN of some of these objects, because when we create the analysis and the dashboard and the template, we will need these ARNs. So the first ARNs that we have to pull are for the data sets, the two data sets. The easy way to do that is you can call the list dataset API against your account ID, and it will list all the data sets. So let's do that. Let's switch to Cloud9. I'll go back to my Cloud9 console. Okay, so I'm back. My screen, I'm going to do a clear. So list data, it's called list data sets, to list all the data sets that are available. And what is the required parameter it needs? AWS account ID. And for the AWS account ID, I already had this in the variable. So now I have the list of all the data sets out there. So I need the ARN for the customer sales data, which is this. So this is the customer sales data ARN. I'm going to store this. And then the second one I have is for the customer sales data. It says data certify, which is this one. So make a copy of that. All right, and notice here, some of these have spice in there because that's the mode we're using. We never switched it to spice. So it's using the direct query mode. Okay, so we're done. We are able to pull that. Next, capture the analysis ARN. Okay, now just the same way you were able to pull the data set, we have recently released the analysis API, and analysis API allow you to capture the analysis ARN. So let's do that. I'm just going to copy this and go back to Cloud9. I'll run this. So here it's showing me the list of all the analysis. These were the samples. This is what I want, customer sales data set analysis. And I'm going to capture this ARN here. So that's my analysis ARN. All right, so I have saved this. What next? So now that we have captured the analysis ARN, let's now create the analysis template. Analysis template is used to decouple the analysis from the dashboard. So you can continue to use on the analysis, not going to impact the dashboard. You can create different versions of the analysis through the template, and you can deploy multiple versions of these dashboards. And templates are really a snapshot or point-in-time version of the analysis. So let's create the template. I'm going to copy this code, switch my screen to Cloud9, I'll create a new file. Replace the account IDs. And I'm going to use the analysis ARN. And I will use the customer sales dataset that was used to create the analysis, not the certified dataset. Okay, I have this file created. Let's now create the template. We'll call the template API. And my template is created. I'm going to capture the ARN of this template because I will need this in the next step. Now the next step is to deploy the dashboard. So let's use the code to deploy the dashboard. I'll create another file. Replace the accounts. Now, what we are doing in this step is we are going to use the API to deploy the dashboard. We will use the template that we created in the last step. And for the data set, we will use the certified data set, not the original data set. So you can see there is flexibility on how you can deploy the dashboards. You can switch the data set for the dashboard. So that this is the power of decoupling that exists in QuickSight, that you can use a production version of the data set with the dashboard. You don't necessarily have to use the same data set that was used to create the analysis. So let's add the template ARN. This is the template ARN goes here, and then the dataset ARN, I will use the certified dataset. All right, and just like template, you can have different versions of the dashboard. You can also do some deployment options like ad hoc filtering. You can enable, disable it. You can enable the export to CSV. By default, it's disabled. So you have some options on how you can deploy the dashboard. So let's now create the dashboard using Create Dashboard API. Okay, I have create dashboard. Did I? Oh, there is a typo. Create dashboard.json. Let's run it again. And here is my dashboard. So it looks like the dashboard is deployed. Let's switch to QuickSight. Let's do a refresh. Here it is. Here is my dashboard. Okay. And this is the dashboard that this is the dashboard that was published using the analysis. So you can see the filtering option is disabled, and the export to CSV is also disabled, so you will not be able to export the data out in here. Okay. Now, next exercise. So we have completed step 10, and so far we have shown how you can create a curated pipeline with different personas, and here the admin has created the dashboard. One last step is to publish this dashboard. So admin can now add this dashboard to the production folder, so it will be visible to everyone who has access to this folder. Because when the admin deployed it, only admin has permissions to it, and that was also shown in the code. Let's look at the code one more time. This is the permission that admin has by default when the dashboard was created. But now the admin has shared to the production folder, which means everyone will now have access to this. Okay, the last step is to create a multi-tenancy environment. Now, to create a multi-tenancy environment, we are going to set up a namespace first. To create the namespace, we can use a namespace API. So I'm going to create two namespaces. In this exercise, we will only use the first namespace, but you can create two namespaces as in the workshop just to see how it works. So let's create a namespace. To replace the Okay, so the first namespace is created. Again, the namespace is a logical boundary that you can use to isolate your customer. So a customer in one namespace would only be able to see the users in that namespace. Now we are going to provision few users. So in this example, I'm going to create two users, a customer A author and a customer A reader. So let's copy these files. Create two users. Author.json. I'll replace the account ID. So we are creating this new user called customer A author, and this user will be restricted on the data source. So this user will have access to the data set, but will not be able to create a data source. The reason you want to provide this type of experience is sometimes your customers would want to see their own data. And even though you have created reports for them, they would like to get access to the data set so they can create their own analysis. This helps with embedded authoring scenario as well, where you can have certain authors get access to the data set and they can create their own visuals, and they can share out with the rest of their team in their tenant as well. So create this user, so I'll call the register user API now. All right, so I have customer A author created. Next, create the reader. We'll use the same process. We'll add another file. Replace the account value. And notice the reader does not need any custom permissions. The reader can only view the dashboards. Okay, the namespace is customer A. It's called customer A reader. So let's create this customer A reader.json. And I have the reader created as well. Next, what we will do is we will grant the certified dataset permission to the customer A author. Now, to do this, you have to log in to the namespace. Now, this user, ISP admin, is logged into the default namespace. So this user will not be able to see the customer A namespace user. Let's try this. So if I go to the dataset and I click on certified dataset and try to do share and invite user, I will not be able to see customer A author here because it's a different namespace. So I have to log in with an admin that has permissions in that namespace. If I'm able to do that, then I'll be able to see that user. But for this lab, what we'll do is we will grant permission to a customer A user through the API. So you'll know how the dataset permissions are granted through the API. So let's do this process. I'll use this code. And I'll create a new file. Customer A dataset. Dataset.json. So here we'll use the account ID. We have to use the dataset ID to use the dataset ID of the certified data source. So the dataset ID we have to pull. So to pull the dataset ID, we can do a list dataset.
Here's the ID. So now you have customary author, and we are granting these permissions to this data set. I'm going to save this and run the command. Now, to grant permissions, we have to call the update dataset permissions API. Okay. Go down here. Call this update dataset permissions API. Customer A, I called it customer A dataset.json just to keep things simple. And this user now has permissions. Okay. Next, we also have to grant these users, both of them, the author and the reader, permissions to the dashboard. And what we are going to do is we will use the update dashboard permissions API this time to grant these permissions. So let's create another file. Call as dashboard permissions.json. Replace the account. So here, both of these users are going to get view-only permissions to the dashboard, both reader and author. We'll call update dashboard permissions API this time. All right. So now these are the updated permissions on the dashboard. So you can notice this can be accessed by ISV admin, customer A reader, and customer A author. Okay. You can also create a group in QuickSight and grant permissions to the group. That's also a way to grant permissions. Okay, now to test this, what we can do is we can log in as customer author and customer reader. So the process is exactly the same. I am going to log off. And before I do that, I will copy this. So I'll log off from here. And sign back in. I'm going to call it customer A author first. Same password. And let's switch refresh this. So I'm logging in as a namespace user, and this is the first time this namespace user is logging in. So you can see this namespace user is able to see the customer dashboard and able to see the certified data set as well, but will not be able to see anything else. And now if we log in as the reader, refresh. Okay, as you can see, the reader does not have access because we were on the dataset page and reader absolutely doesn't have access. So what I'm going to do is click the home page and see what the reader has access to. The only thing the reader has access to is this dashboard. Okay, so the reader can click the dashboard and that's all the reader can see. So this concludes our workshop for today. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to leave any comments or feedback. Thank you very much for listening and joining the webinar. Thank you.